Yes, good evening everybody. How we doing? Welcome back on board once again. It's the Boy Say Bus. It's a Thursday. We're live on YouTube, so that can only mean one thing. It's of course time for the most fun day of the week. It is the Thursday night forum, the time where we all invite you on the bus, but we throw you over the keys because it's going to be your questions, your opinions, and your points to the guys that are ultimately going to dictate where we go tonight. Now, if you're already watching on YouTube, you're obviously in good company. Hopefully you've done so, but if you haven't already, flip over, hit the subscribe button. That way you'll get notified every time we put out new content or we go live. If you like what we do, give the video a like, and if you're feeling a wee bit crazy, you can even share it and extend our reach further. If you want to reach out with us elsewhere, we're on Twitter, official Boy Say Bus website there, and you can also follow all the other idiots. There's our personal handles are there if you want to see what kind of nonsense chat we get up to when we're not sitting in front of you on the screen. Now, we're also extending out our platforms. We're out on Acast, we're out on EPL Index, and we're back on all the regular places, Spotify and the like. So wherever you want to listen, there's plenty of choice, and make sure you tune in, download and follow us. Now, before we get on, we've obviously got to do one or two wee sponsors. The first one needs no introduction by now, does it? It's piesports.com, long-term, long-standing sponsor of the bus. Get yourself over to piesports.com. Place yourself an order for some tasty matchday treats, and when you do, put in Bus 1888 at your checkout to get 12.5% off your order. Now, speaking of pies, I feel that's a fairly apt segue into our next and new sponsor, which is ED Pharmacy. So, if you're one of our viewers out there and you're wanting to get in about a different type of pie, metaphorically speaking, or maybe it's a bit of acid you're into. Either way, if you get yourself into the bedroom and you cannot rise to the occasion, you're more of a flop-lip Rangers and you can't be a champion like Ange and the boys, then ED Pharmacy have got you covered. Get yourself over there, place an order, and when you do, put in Bus 10, and that will get you 10% off your order. No magic beans arrive in the post. You can rest assured that the next time you are presented with an opportunity and a shot at the title, you'll be able to rise to the occasion and get over the finish line just like the champions and the genetic jackhammer you've always wanted to be. Anyway,
magnificent Stevo.
That's that. The housekeeping's out the way. So welcome. There was a few changes last week over at Ibrox to the lineup. Celtic were a wee bit weakened, but we never have this problem on the bus because when we change who's on, it's strength for strength, like for like, and it's another heavyweight lineup tonight for you. Top of the corner there, man that needs no introduction. He's the busy worker bee behind the scenes of the bus, and the quizmaster himself is Phil McGinley. How are you, my man?
I'm doing very good, mate. Very good. Glad to be on, man. So, yes, looking forward to a fun night in the old T.N.F. We're off to a blockbuster start already with that introduction, Stevo.
I think you smart ways to sell something like that without being too serious, eh?
Yeah,
and
yes, indeed.
Also with us, again, it's the face that runs the place when it comes round here, the man with the sharp opinions and a sharper tongue. It's Marc, the judge. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing very well, Stevo. Yourself, mate? Glad to be here.
Good, mate. It's always good to be back and good company here. And at the bottom of your screen there's a face that it's normally reserved for early morning rises. Maybe more so if he gets a bit of ED Pharmacy into him. But we've managed to get him on a loan deal and he's brought himself out. He's a man in the sky. It's John Logue, legend of the bus and father of would-be Power Ranger David. How are you, mate?
I'm fine, thanks. I'm quite happy to be back in the same time zone as the rest of you boys after my little visit last week to see Rocky. And he's a lot bigger than he looks, on the screen.
I saw the picture. That's class. And did you make your way up those steps then? Was it a hard graft getting up there?
No, it's a long time since I've seen the film, but to be honest with you, it looks a lot harder on the film than it is actually in real life. I actually managed to just take a gentle stroll up there. Steve, it would be no competition for you. You would get up there and think, is that it?
Listen, the looks are deceptive. I'm no built for speed. I could run the length of myself and be blown out my arse, but that's another matter altogether. But anyway, guys, welcome. It is a pleasure as always to have you on. And as we all say, people in the comments watching. There's currently 40 that are watching live at the moment. We will start to pick up as it go on. We're on a wee bit earlier. We'll be going back to a sort of regular 9 o'clock slot. We just needed to accommodate an earlier start today. And I'm also noticing there's a few people asking in the comments with regards to the very iconic music and intro video. Nothing to worry with regards to that. Since we've started to extend out, we're on different platforms. We're kind of getting down maybe some uncharted and at times slippery roads as we negotiate how we need to present our material in terms of how we edit and upload it. But don't worry, the bus are always all over it, and we're coming up with a suitable solution, and hopefully that will be rectified at some point. The most important thing is the content will not change. You'll still get the quality Celtic chat throughout the week and at regular intervals. So that's it. We're out the way. So as we say, we'll be getting you guys to feed us the conversation. But in terms of Celtic news, there hasn't been too much since the fallout of the last game. We've seen some nonsense, links as we always do to signings, but nothing concrete. But one thing that we did see, and I want to pick your guys' minds about it, just a wee bit of drama, a wee bit of sort of assumptions. We have all saw the pictures by now, because the Irish Monopoly man was in at Parkhead. He came out of his golfing cave, he got himself in. Who knows what he was doing there? He was there with the lesser known Desmond. He was there with Law, and he was there pictured with Ange in the front reception. Also a few things that people are putting up, arrivals of team buses and players ferrying in the same sort of day. We've seen the terrace fencing getting stacked up. We've seen the back-to-back champions logos above the stadium. So the question is, what was it all about? For my recollection, there's no any golf on. There's nothing planned. So is the big man going to get into the deep pockets and fire up, as the Rangers would call it, a war chest as we go into the summer? So what do we think? I always like to ask you, Marc, because I know you're a bit sceptical sometimes of these things. You've saw the pictures. What's your reading of the situation? Is it bad news? Is it good news? Is it just he was in the town and he was dropping by?
I think it's no news, mate. I don't think that picture was taken by Celtic's approval, and it was posted with Celtic's approval. We don't let any Tom, Dick and Harry into the main reception to take photographs and post on Twitter. That picture was absolutely taken by somebody that had permission to post it. So, and one thing that we've got to get clear here: Celtic we don't just spend money that doesn't exist. We spend money that's within the company. We don't need Dermot Desmond's approval or opinion to spend the money. It's done through the board of directors on behalf of the shareholders. He didn't turn up to Celtic Park and approve a £10 million striker. That's not how it works. I know it seems to be the kind of phrase on Twitter where Desmond, get your check out and we'll sign Ivan Toney last year or 2 years ago. That's not how it works. You know what I mean?
Good job we didn't, by the way.
No, you got a bit on that, Marc.
No.
Hey!
No, but that's not how it works, mate. You know what I mean? And the photograph, he's come into Glasgow for unknown reasons, right? And with that guy, he very rarely ventures across this part of the world. But normally he comes over for trophy day, he comes over for the big matches. We've got a cup final coming up, and we've got a trophy presentation next week. And the Garsday fences you mentioned, Celtic are playing at home on Saturday, and the Celtic Superstore has got like an S or it's a shaped kind of fencing, so the queues are going to be structured a certain way so you can't skip in. That's why they're there. The team buses were there because the home and the men's team and women's team were in taking photographs. That tells you that probably is going to be the home kit photographs. Yeah. And it wasn't just the team bus, there was also photographers and all that inside the bus, I know. So that's probably been equipment and everything that's come off that bus. So that answers the questions. I don't think Celtic's planning is done on an ad hoc basis on a Wednesday afternoon when the two men talking in a foyer at Celtic Park. It's probably done more structure than that. Probably done through Zoom calls nowadays, and it's probably done maybe even earlier than what it is just now. There'll be a summer rebuild or a summer build meeting at some point, but it doesn't happen in the full focus of Scottish Twitter and Scottish Facebook. It just doesn't happen that way, mate. It just he's come in for probably a reason that's probably disappointing to anybody who wants a bit of excitement. He's probably took the opportunity to call Ange and meet him face to face for probably only the second or third time. And I think if Ange would be quite quite clever to come and meet the guy who's the biggest shareholder if he phones him up and says, you want to come and meet me. I don't think he's yet to discuss contracts because the guy doesn't get involved with things like that. The only time he's involved is when it comes to recruiting new managers, and the couple of times he has got involved, they seem to have managed good ones like Neil and Rodgers, and him, he was involved in that. The other ones have just been flinging hats into that ring to see into a box and pulling a name out, you know what I mean, by the sounds of it. So no, I don't think any rumours or any speculation based on a photograph that quite clearly has been staged, because if that photograph wasn't approved, the minute that camera was put out of somebody's pocket, that person would have been asked to leave the reception. And you don't let Tom, Dick, Harry in there, mate. It's not how it works. You don't have billionaires and Celtic managers cutting about reception with Tom the Tim for Twitter. It doesn't work that way, mate.
No,
sorry to break people's hearts, mate, but that's the truth of the matter.
But everybody, listen, it's going to get to that funny, silly season now, isn't it? Where close season arrives, we're going to start seeing more and more of this stuff. But as to just, let's just keep that's Marc's take on it. What about yourself, Phil, as I say, listen, is it just a chance meeting? Or let's say it is. Do you think it's a positive thing when we don't see guys like Dermot Desmond around too often? It can only be positive, surely, if he's coming in, even if that's just sitting down and, familiarising himself with Ange. We've not really seen him in the company. It's a photo that's not really been widely saw since he's been at the club. So it can't go amiss, can it, to sit there and have his ear for a wee bit?
I think Mark's pretty right with what he said there. I don't imagine Desmond has met with Ange that often over the course of the last 2 years. So, Pod's case, he was in town. He'll be at the game on Saturday. I'd like to. I mean, obviously, I love a good WhatsApp rumour. I love when a screen grab is doing the rounds from a WhatsApp group chat. This is some of the ridiculous stuff that comes. So naturally, that's where it would first seen it. My first thought was, here we go. Silly season has begun. What can this be? Of course, we did see the picture. And again, I think, Marc, you're spot on, because that seemed to be like, if somebody was snapped at, as brazenly as that, they're going to get caught. They're going to get asked to leave, delete the picture, whatever, for it to go out there. So it feels like it was maybe put out there, I don't know, on purpose, whatever, or they were okay with it going out there, because there probably isn't anything really to it. It's probably just a sort of meeting just to, society people haven't really spoke to each other. I mean, I'd love to think it is some sort of crazy rumour about war chests and stuff like that, transfer budgets. Ange is going to finally get that contract that we talk about, how we'd like to be tied down to a multi-year contract. It'll probably be an anticlimax, unfortunately. Again,
10 years, 10 million a year.
Probably. I don't want to echo what Marc says, but yeah, I'm kind of just causing an anticlimax as well, where I'm just like, I don't think there is anything exciting coming from this.
Yours are no fun.
I know. We could have some fun with silly season here, but I'm just trying to be realist about it. I just think it'll be just a meeting just to talk about things in general and just to get to know him, really. So, not get to know him, but you know what I mean? He's not probably spoke to him in a lot in those 2 years, just leaves him to it. So, just a sort of courtesy meeting, essentially.
Okay. Yourself, John, I know you've been globe-trotting everywhere, so you're maybe a wee bit behind, and maybe this is news to yourself, but based off the back of what we've just said there, we're getting into this close season. When are we going to start to hear, or do you think we'll get any sort of public indication? Celtic are always one to notoriously keep their cards close to their chest, and you don't give out your hand, do you, with how much you've got to spend, but you've got to imagine that those questions have surely been asked up by now. We've only got a handful of games to the end of the season. We're in the fortunate position, guaranteed Champions League. We've got a full clear summer. You thinking those conversations have already been had with regards to transfers?
I'm sure they have been, and I'm sorry, but I think Marc and Phil might be eating the words tomorrow when the news breaks that Ange has signed a 5-year contract.
Yes, that's the positivity we need.
I'll be happy to eat those words.
Of the lesser spotted Dermot Desmond, So I think they'll be eating the words, and the boys who bust tomorrow night will all about grovelling their apologies about how badly wrong they got it tonight. I think if we go back to that one, I think it is a bit of a non-event. I think Dermot sort of pops up now and again, a bit like the favourite son who's pissed off somewhere and comes back and visits his mum once or twice every couple of years. I think Dermot has made it quite clear that he's not a sugar daddy, never has been, never will be. So I don't think Marc and Phil need to worry too much about tomorrow morning's headlines. Regarding transfers, I'm sure they have been talked about, but I'm sure, just like I think we all know, that Ange has told us that nobody in the Scottish press has the faintest idea what he's got in his mind, what he's planning. What did he say last week? I mean, this started early this year, was it? With some of the speculation about was that a Japanese player, wasn't it? Yeah, another Japanese player.
They're way off the mark. So they're way off the mark.
Way off the mark, yeah. So, I mean, I've given up. I mean, not that I ever was, I've never claimed to have been an expert on who we might be looking at, who we might go for, who we might even be interested in or even need, because I don't have enough knowledge of world football, and certainly haven't got enough knowledge of what Ange Postecoglou's, where he's looking and where he's looking to cast that net, whether he's going to stay in Japan, move elsewhere. So it's a I don't want to say it's a pointless exercise, but it's a very difficult one to even try and guess where we're going to. But the conversations will have taken place, and they do seem to be quite good. Or Ange seems quite good at keeping it quiet until he wants it out of the bag.
Yeah.
So I think that's where that
definitely. We've been good. I think we've been good. It's been a nice change of pace, is it not? Going through the past sort of season or so, transfer windows where it's all been sort of quiet in the Western Front. There's not been any of this over dramatised, will they, won't they? We had a wee bit of it perhaps with Cho, but it wasn't to the levels that we've seen before. And even the stories of discontent and people leaving, you know, it was Juranovic and it was Giakoumakis, and it was kind of resolved fairly quick, wasn't that? So, you know, that's got to be positive. We've got to go into summer with a positive mindset. But, you know, we do still have games to play, and we're looking ahead to the weekend. And listen, just to get these questions rolling in the first instance, we'll just get straight out with Paul Dye. He's asking the question, the very, very simple question. We're at home. Will he double down and will he play that same team this weekend? You know, we scorned them for some of those performances throughout the week. It's a different playing field, isn't it, when you're at home, certainly. And would you be wanting to give chances? The record's gone, that point record, that's in the bin. It doesn't really matter. We're 10 points ahead of Rangers. Obviously, you want to stay ahead of them because they're wee theoretical mini league. You don't want to drop points and all that. But coming to yourself directly, Marc, obviously, you know, you gave a good opinion on some of those guys previously. But is Ange going to do it again? Are we going to have to endure a Bernabe and a Kobayashi and a no up front? And if so, they've surely got to be well a cup to deal with St Mirren at home, have they not?
Well, if you don't learn your lesson, then there's something wrong with you, mate. I think Kobayashi has proven that he's just not to the task of playing for Celtic. I don't think you should reward failure or reward mediocrity. I think you should give Greg Taylor his place back. I think even if Greg Taylor's struggling, I think you should find an alternative. I think you go to Lea Larkerdon in the Celtic team and say, if you're going to say there's a standard and we never stop, then don't stop. Don't rest players at Ibrox and don't just make wholesale changes to appear like you don't care about the match, because I think one thing's for sure, I think a lot of the Celtic players had the same kid on, pretend view of the match as some of the Celtic fans did, and that's when the game didn't matter. And I was quite, I wasn't surprised with Rangers' victory last week. I thought they would win. Sometimes you just run out of luck sometimes. They don't always miss the chances, and sometimes Celtic just don't always get the rub of the green, and that's just the way it works. And I expected us to get beat. When I seen the team sheet, I said they'll score 3 or 4. I said they'll score 3 or 4, and that was my exact opinion on it, and I was proven right. I don't think Kobayashi and I think Jota was shafted. I think Jota was absolutely shafted playing in front of Kobayashi and Bernabe. David read out the stats the other day there. 28. He gave away the ball away 28 times out of 100, and Kobayashi.
I knew it was bad, but I found that Starker was really concerning to see that, wasn't it?
I noticed it, and he's very funny. If you remember the game we watched pre-season, me and Boyce had done a post-match, and he played 60 minutes that match, and I did a wee kind of analysis on the guy, and he gave the ball away 9 times in dangerous positions, gave away a corner 5 times, and gave away the ball in the box twice on his debut. And I said straight away, that's alarming. I said, I don't think you get his discipline was terrible. Knew it's become fairly obvious his discipline's terrible, but I'll stick for it, but I think I might be right with that. I think you got to play Kyogo on Saturday and all. It's not a charity. Celtic aren't a charity. You got to earn your place. I think there's guys like Vata and that who are coming in and playing really well, and they're getting totally brushed aside in the big matches, understandably, because you got to kind of pace these guys into the club. But I just think you can't play that team. I know it's St Mirren, but you've got to lay a marker here to say to these players, look, okay, it's St Mirren, but you've proven against Hearts and Rangers that you're not good enough for this team. Certainly not the new anyway. So don't be expecting starts. I said that the other day on the show. I mean, Martin Neal said to players who chapped the door asking for starts, when they gave them a start, they get beat half a team in the second division. Don't come to the door. Don't come knocking on my door again if you're not going to live up to expectations. And I think Celtic did stop last week. It's not that we never stopped. We absolutely stopped. We stopped we committed the game with a certain level of arrogance, and I think you can't be arrogant again. I don't think you can come in, choose to totally ignore the opposition, totally to choose to ignore their strengths, and just put out a team that's just set up to play with the way that you think you're going to play in, and no kind of barter with yourself and try and make changes to make your game plan work in that certain match. And you do that against St Mirren, and they might even nick a goal or not. We might win 4 or 5-1, but I said a few times in the pod, I don't think Celtic is a charity. I think you've got to earn your place in this starting 11, because as Ange says, we want to be bigger and better, stronger, and we won the double this season, probably got to be the treble. But let's not let our standards slip because we've won the league. Nobody was accepting that performance last Saturday, Stevo. Not one has accepted that performance. I don't want to see look at the sky every time he touches the ball and it bounces off his legs. I don't want to see Kobayashi look a pure riot on the ball, and I don't want to see Bernabei play for Celtic probably ever again, in my opinion. We've got to find solutions, and they boys just earn it. Certainly not this season, and I don't care who that upsets.
No, it's strong words. Listen, I think you're very fair there in your assessment. You know, the guys weren't good enough. Some folk are giving allowances. They're being a wee bit more sort of passé about it. They're not that bored. But what about yourself, John? Since you're globetrotting, if you've been able to catch up, if you caught the highlights, if you caught up on, the feeling among some quarters of our fan base about the players that Marc's just mentioned, certainly one of the big things was not only a lack of fight, a lack of desire, but particularly with Kobayashi and Bernabei, it was a lack of physicality, a lack of basic defending. Now, we're playing against St Mirren, one of the very few teams that have taken a win off us, but they're also notoriously well organised. They're, well structured. They don't have superstars, but they play well as a cohesive unit. And one thing as well is they certainly know how to put themselves about. So that begs the question, getting into the weekend at home or not, you're going to be in for a fight, aren't you? We've seen games, we've seen teams like Motherwell, we've seen teams like St Mirren rock up to Parkhead before and give us a hard time, even though, as we said, we've got bigger fish to fry with a treble on the horizon at the end of the month. Does the status quo remain? Is Ange going to give these guys a second chance? And the question is, if he does that and it doesn't quite work out again, whether it's a win or otherwise, how many chances do they get between now and the end of the season? Because, positions in the starting lineup can't just be given out like sweeties just to give somebody a wee try and a pat on the back and say, there you go. But I also understand the balancing act of guys like guys like Bernabei. There's a certain cash sum attached to the players, so you're maybe inclined or feel compelled that you need to play them. Where are you at with it?
I'm in total agreement with Marc regarding Bernabei. He's not a defender. I seem to remember that I was on one night, it was a Thursday night with Boise, and it was just after he'd signed, and we were talking about him. And I said at the time, I was a little bit concerned about the fact that this guy's a fullback. And every clip that we see him, and I know it's YouTube, all right? Okay, and as David has always said, David could look good on YouTube, all right? But everything was all about, and that's David that said that, not me. I'm not dropping him in at this time, right? But every clip he's seen and everything that looked all right, and it's transferred to what he's doing for us. Everything that you can say that Bernabei's done that's good, and it's not been an awful lot, has been on an attacking sense. and I'm old-fashioned, and I like my defenders to defend, and that's what I said at the time to Boyce. And there was nothing showing there that of his defensive abilities. So he's going to have the biggest turnaround ever in history to make it at Celtic, as far as I'm concerned. All right.
Yeah.
I don't want to give Marc a heart attack, but I think Kobayashi is going to be playing for the rest of the season. He will play in the cup final. And even to say, I said to you, Phil, when me and you done the breakfast show about 6 or 7 weeks ago, I'm convinced that Ange has brought Kobayashi with the intention of him being one of the main men next year. Pick Marc off his seat there, off the floor, and put him back in his seat, because I know that's going to give
John,
him.
can I ask you quickly just one question? Do you think guys like Dewey will feel hard done in how quickly they were judged at Celtic after watching his performances in the last couple of weeks?
Mate, Dewey, listen, I'd stop you there right now.
No, don't answer that. Dewey played 45 minutes, Stevo.
He was the one. I was going to say he was the one who was judged after 45 minutes against Clyde on Roy Keane's debut, wasn't he? So so he probably would be, yeah. But as I said, was about to say, I'm convinced that obviously he's a Ange signing, and I think Ange has signed him with, again, make sure you're sitting down, Marc, because I'm convinced that Ange signed him with the intention of him being Starfelt's replacement next year. I said that's why he signed him. I think I'm convinced he's brought him in January with the intention of building him up and through and getting him ready for next season. I'm not saying that's going to work. I'm not saying he's good enough for it, Marc. But I think
you're right, John.
I think that's Ange's plan. I think that's what he was thinking. If I can bring him in for nothing, and I can sell this man that I bought for $4.5 million, and even get the $4.5 million back, I think Ange would have been happy at that. But from the performances we've seen of Kobayashi, he doesn't look up to it. The physicality, he doesn't look like he can cope with that. Bit concerned about the fact that Suter has scored 2 goals against Celtic, one for Hearts, one for Rangers, and they've both been, I wouldn't go as far as say carbon copies, but he's had free reign to run right through that defence, get his head on that ball and score. The 2-1, the second goal, which turned out to be the winner against us on Ange's first game, and obviously on Ange's last game there on Saturday. So that would concern me. That goal doesn't get scored if Carter Vickers is there. No. I don't. If it's Carter Vickers and Starfelt defending, that goal ain't scored. Not saying we'd make any difference to the result, but that goal's not scored. And he won't be playing on Saturday either. We all know Kyogo's coming straight back in there. And Taylor, unless he's out injured, he's got to play because, and I hate to use the phrase because it's so disrespectful, it might only be Inverness Cali in the final, but we want our best players out the park, and I don't want Burnaby playing against Inverness Cali. Simple as that. In fact, I think I'm completely in line with Marc. If Burnaby doesn't play for us again, it'll be too soon.
Yeah.
No, that's a fair point. No, obviously with yourself here, Phil, we've seen some of the points are coming in, and if we're going to double down and play these guys, is it a case of we very much play the same formation? Brown's making a point here. He says the problem is with Ange, he'll make wholesale changes to starting 11, but he'll make no changes to the system. Perhaps to maybe see them, as you're saying, guys like Burnaby might be better in an advanced role than he is certainly defending, or might be suited to a 2 up front. Who knows? He knows these players. He sees them training every day. If we're going to experiment and we're going to see what players have got, is there value in what Brown's saying? Would you rather, if those guys were going to be back in the team at the weekend, that it was as part of a different formation, a different setup, a plan B, another option, whatever way you want to phrase it? Because he's obviously signed these guys because he saw something in them.
Yeah.
At this moment in time, it certainly, to at least our eyes, doesn't look as if what he saw in them fits into the system we're currently playing. We always say he signs guys for a system, but the chances they've got in that system, it's not quite worked out. So is it time to use those remaining games up to the cup final and play about with formations? I mean, I, for one, as a fan, I wouldn't be criticising if we tried a completely new system and it didn't work. I'd be happy to see the change and say we've tried something different. Is there any value in that?
While I agree with the sentiment, because this is a great chance. You get St Mirren, Aberdeen, and Hibs, or Hibs, Aberdeen, rather in that order. To me, this cup final is it's huge. I know it's again what Johnny said. It might only be Inverness, but that's that invisible force we talk about. Momentum. We've now lost momentum. We've had a draw in recent weeks in Motherwell, and we get beat by Rangers last week. We need to be at our absolute best. So for me now, to the end of the season, it needs to be the team essentially that he thinks is going to play in the cup final, which will be the strongest team he will field. But I would be playing them. Maybe substitutes that come on can maybe get a little bit longer sometimes, maybe than 15 minutes, whatever. If we're winning games comfortably, by all means, give them a bit longer. But for me, we need to get momentum here because let's be honest, right? We've been winning games, but how many times have we said in recent weeks, we found a way to win that game? There's been a few performances in recent weeks where start of the season, and don't get me wrong, I understand that the way we play, we cannot just go out and wear teams 6-0 for 50 plus games a season. We can't do that or in a year. It's going to catch up to you eventually, and I feel like it has caught up to us. Like the energy doesn't seem to be what it was at the start of the season, but I think now after that performance last week, I don't think any chances. Even though it's not going to affect the league table, we've still won the title. But if we want to just have like 3 snidey results now against St Mirren, Aberdeen, and Hibs, you would go into the cup final going, I don't know now. I mean, I'm very, very, very confident we're going to beat Inverness, but if we were to have a few snidey results here and drop a couple more points, I would go in going a couple of weak links here. I'm worried about it. So for me, it has to be the strongest 11, the system that he's been playing. Just go with it and just get those points on the board, have the strongest possible finish, and then go into that cup final and just steamroller Inverness Cali Thistle.
Yeah, no, most of the points
Can I just ask Mark one question regarding Kobayashi? Would you play Welsh instead?
I'd play him. Yeah, definitely.
There you go. That tells
you everything.
I'm glad
you brought that up. Says you play Welsh.
I'm glad you
play Welsh.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Even for the cold. Well, that's what I was about to say there. A lot of the comments seem to be roughly about the lineup and keeping things the same or trying folk that are further out in the cold, and where do we go for there? Get into the close season. As much as kind of stuff that we've covered before. People are saying here, play the first team versus Hibs and Aberdeen, and that's obviously going to give a wee bit of sort of variation in between. But regards to the options that we've got, let's look at, where is Welsh? What's the situation there? Is it a sign of the times that he's not going to be part of this squad or part of the plans if he can't even, make it in the squad? He can't even get a chance when Kobayashi's playing that badly to get on. And then you've also got to look at other guys that we've got at our disposal. Turnbull and the likes are coming on. Where do we go? Where do we go with these guys, Mark? Welsh. I even heard from another source that will not mention, madness talk here. Boston will get in a game. I'm sorry, I watched that game and I would rather have my kneecaps drilled than run the risk of putting him into the back four. But what is your thoughts on these sort of fringe guys that we've got? The fringes of the fringe. Is there any value? You seem to think Welsh is got a better shout and you'd rather see more of him. Is that if we given up on Welsh?
Well, I don't think Welsh is Celtic quality. I'm not going to lie. I've said it since day one, but I do think he's a stronger defender, and I do think that Starfelt will probably a bit more comfortable playing next to him. I think he can't pass the ball. He can't either. His timing of a challenge is pretty poor, but looks at it. I don't think he's able to command a box. I just don't know what his strong parts are, to be honest with you. And I just find the guy totally a bizarre signing now that I've watched him play. I think Maurice Jens would have been a lot better to stay there. But anyway, no, I think I've said before, I think Celtic's squad looks great when we've got a first 11 in the park. But the reality of the squad isn't that great, mate, because when you start to replace your first 11, you're taking out guys like Taylor and bringing in Bernaby. You're taking out guys like Johnson and bringing in Ralston. And I love Ralston, but it's still a wee bit of a drop. It's not a massive drop, but it's still a drop. You're bringing Kyogo out and you're bringing in O. that's a drop. That's like falling off the cliff, but no falling into the ground, falling below the ground beyond another cliff under the ground. That's a major drop off. You're bringing out guys like Hatate, and then you're scrambling round, bringing in Awata, pushing McGregor in there, bringing Moy back in as unfit. Just all over the place, you're seeing drop offs in quality. Turnbull coming in, I just don't think our squad depth, it needs addressed. I think our first 11 needs addressed, guys. I'm not going to lie. I think Celtic, if Celtic want to stay above Rangers, because they will invest, if Celtic want to progress in Europe, they're going to have to address some of the first 11 players and go to the next level. But one thing's for sure, you just can't just forget about the second string. You've got to replace that with some quality players. If that means getting some money back on a Turnbull, getting rid of a few players, then we should do it. I mean, Ange was very quick. It took him 14 seconds to get rid of Uruguay, 14 seconds to get rid of Scales, 14 seconds to get rid of the other boy for Ireland. I can't remember his name now. And do you know what? There's another boy with two blonde boys.
Don't say John Doe Kenny, wrong Kenny.
There's two blonde boys. One's called Scales, one's called, I can't remember now. But
Johnny Kenny went to the striker from Shamrock Rovers.
That's another boy. There was two blonde boys. One Scales, one for I can't remember. But anyway, we got shot at them after seconds, and even though these guys were involved in a team that beat Real Betis, it's like Park quite comfortably. We get shot at them straight away, and there's guys telling us in May that Bernabé needs time to settle a season after they signed, you know what I mean? And guys like Kobayashi 4 months after they signed, and guys that are 23 this year are too young to be judged on like Bernabé again. We have to get the squad totally looked at in perspective, no looking at it in a romantic sense. Or I heard folk mention in this summer that they kept Bain because he helps the Scottish contingent for the Champions League. And if a team like Celtic want to compete in Europe by bringing in players and keep them around about the club just to fulfil the quota, then we're never going to get anywhere in Europe, guys. Never, ever. There's probably better Scottish players out there than what we've got in our squad. I dare say there's probably better defenders in the top six than what we've seen play for Celtic this last couple of weeks. And Celtic have just no got it in them to get rid of certain players. And I think if we don't address the second string this season, our backup players, then no matter how we progress the first 11, I don't know where we go. Because if we've got a long season this season, next season, right, we're in the Champions League, Europa League, hopefully. After that, what happens if we get in the last 7-8 games? There's a drop in form, and Rangers are only 2 points behind us.
Yep.
And you've got the Ibrox. You've got Ibrox way. I wouldn't have wanted to go Ibrox. I know we would have played Taylor and we would have played Kyogo, but the fact of the matter is, with no Carter Vickers, who may have been held back, but with no Arthur Johnson, and all of a sudden you start to panic. And I was panicking when Hatate was out the game, Stevo.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're only one player for each department, striker, midfield and defence, for catastrophe. You take away Carter Vickers, that defence looks very ropey. You take a Cal McGregor or Hatate, all of a sudden it's no very fluent. You take a Kyogo out of that strike force, and that's a totally different animal altogether. And Celtic need to address that. I think we jumped the gun a wee bit by getting shot at Giakoumakis, and I think we jumped the gun a wee bit by freezing out Maurice Jens, because one thing's for sure, they two players at Ibrox and at Tynecastle would have done a lot better and played a lot better than the guys who brought in.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And
he's addressed, Stevo. He's addressed.
That sentiment seems to be getting echoed here, John. There's 2 points that basically one and the same. You know, firstly, Ian's saying we're looking at a squad. We've said this before, that maybe it's perceived quality, it's perceived depth over what's actually really there. There's been guys that have been hanging about the club and they've had question marks over them for a while. You know, there's guys that are completely out of the picture, like the likes of your McCarthy's that are there, not to mention the raft of players that are on good wages that are out on loan. And then we're starting to now question guys that are fresher on the door, the likes of, as we say, Kobayashi, the likes of Bernabé. And then there's also guys that are mainstays but still don't seem to have quality like Bernabé. So what Ian's basically saying is we're looking forward to it. We want to see more European qualities coming in and forward planning. But then it doubles down with what Stubbsy's saying, and he coins a phrase that I used a couple of days ago when I was in the comments, which is, how will the fans react if we don't have quote-unquote oven-ready players? In other words, players that are seasoned, players that are gristled, players that have got match experience at a certain level that we are desiring, that can go straight into the squad with their eyes blind and hit the ground running. You know, we've been quite fortunate. We've tapped into markets that Ange is known, but as Boyce came in and said as well, you know, take Johnson out the equation and you look at the sort of body, they've not all been great, have they? So, in terms of standard, it's easy to say oven ready, European quality. What does that mean to you, John? How does that translate? Because in my opinion, a price tag doesn't guarantee quality. Where's the middle ground?
I have absolutely no idea where the middle ground is, but it's like you said, the price tag doesn't guarantee quality. We've seen it. We bought players on the cheap that have turned out to be Hatate. Best example I can think of off the top of my head. £1.5 million. But we talk about, we sell players on and we bring in other players in to take their places who are going to take us to the next level. Well, how do we buy Hatate for £1.5 million, sell him for an imaginary figure, £10 million? How are we going to replace him to get somebody better? We're going to have to spend more than £10 million, are we? Or do we go back to the £1.5 million pot? It's impossible to say what an oven-ready player is. Are we going to go, he's not quite oven-ready? Or do we go, he's been in the oven too long and he's slightly burnt? An oven-ready player is in his prime Messi, and there's no way we're getting anybody like that. In his prime Zidane, as Matt Elliott apparently thought he was when he was asking for the money he wanted to sign for Celtic, and that was just quality from Martin O'Neill. But an oven-ready player, he needs to be experienced, maybe 24, 25, 26. Maybe we've been around a couple of leagues. I mean, Giakoumakis was probably not oven ready, but he wasn't too far off it. And I think you're right, Mark. We jumped the gun and we should have kept him longer. Even if we did sign O, said, right, we're going to sign O. Giakoumakis, you can go in the summer, but not until the summer. If you want to go to MLS then and earn your 28 grand a week or whatever you're going to get from them, you can do it in the summer. We had to keep the more experienced players. It all sounded great. Oh, let's sign this guy. He's got a good reputation in Korea. He's got dragged along to the World Cup, even though they knew they weren't going to play him because he stepped aside to let Son get his place back despite the fact he was injured. And it sounded good. But the drop-off, as Mark said earlier on, between Kyogo and O and Kyogo and Giakoumakis, there wasn't. If you take your mind back to when Kyogo got his shoulder done by Lundstrom, we were rubbing our hands at the fact that Giakoumakis was coming on his replacement. We were not about it the slightest. But we would be with O. But if I'm being honest with you, the answer to your question about what is oven ready is who really knows? I mean, not somebody of my football level intellect. I I never played football at any level, so it makes it difficult for me to know what is an oven-ready player. Yeah, you can look at players. He looks good, but we looked at Bernabeu and he looked good on his YouTube clip.
YouTube's the issue.
YouTube's a bastard. That's what YouTube is.
Well, So sorry, you go.
No. I was going to say, because there was something that sparked a memory when Mark said something about buying players, romanticized and keeping them for a reason. It doesn't really tally up with one of the stories I read about Ange Postecoglou when he told one of his best mates when he became the manager of the team they were playing for. He said, "It's time for you to retire, mate. Off you pop." So he's not, that kind of guy. He's not going to keep somebody like James Forrest just because he's a good guy around the dressing room, or Scott Bain because he's a laugh, and he has good spirit. You're not. It's time for you to go, mate. Go back to Dundee, or go and play with your brother at Hearts. He told his best mate, time to retire. Didn't speak to him for 2 years, his best mate, because of it. Did it bother Ange? No. So that's not tallying up with somebody who keeps a player for sentimental reasons.
Well, certainly, speaking of players there, you mentioned Giakoumakis, as we said, was a big favourite. And again, was he oven ready? Well, he was certainly something of a journeyman, but he'd been round the block and he knew a thing or two when it came to turning up my match. He's been in the news recently. He's made some open comments, as Giakoumakis does again, where he seemed to be aiming fire at his captain of his club, saying that he wasn't particularly a leader on the pitch and that he wasn't seeing much out of him. That begs the question, we were talking about Ange letting people go. Is that one that we're talking about being a downgrade and not up to the standard of Giakoumakis that we expected? Do you think, Phil, that what we've seen with this new comment that he's doing over his time just so newly in America, that perhaps there was bigger issues afoot with Giakoumakis than just not being fancied to a style? Would you rather have somebody around with that sort of fire in his belly? Is that something that we are missing, something that we need to get in? Or do you think the stall's been set out that we're going to get students of the game rather than, experienced and battle-worn players of the game?
It's by a double-edged sword, because there's nothing wrong with a player having that sort of enthusiasm and that fire. But I remember on a show that months ago when the talk was that he was going to be leaving, I think I'd said on one of the episodes I was on that looking at his Wikipedia and his history of clubs, on average he's got, I think he was 28 years old, and I think he'd had 11 clubs or something at that point. So you're looking at less than a year on average and stuff like that. I know some of them are loans and that, so it kind of there was some alarm bells there. And if that's happening already, where I'm being a bit outspoken, but it was said earlier on in the chat, and Russell had mentioned it, we are in a day and age where players just like to be mollycoddled. Gone are the days of the old school hairdryer treatment and stuff like that you hear about with the Alex Fergusons of the world. Managers nowadays are more akin to like a Jurgen Klopp who wants to have a laugh and be one of the lads and put an arm around a player to encourage them rather than. So we're in that day and age, but it seems like Giakoumakis is cut for a different cloth. He's playing in this current age, but he doesn't seem to be for this age in terms of his attitude. But it seems to be it must get him in trouble in a few different clubs that he's been at, and it does get him out the door a lot quicker than he probably plans on. But in terms of the players we were talking about, the oven ready stuff as well, my prediction, my feeling is with this summer, I don't think we'll have heard of any of the players that we sign. I think
is that concerning for you? Or are we trusting that process?
Trusting that expression.
I'm just talking
about the day and age, and the talk about players getting mollycoddled and trusting the process. But yes, I do. But I think that we won't have heard, because look at all the players that Ange has signed so far. So I'd say that the majority of Celtic fans knew who Carter Vickers was on the basis he had a bit of exposure from the Premier League. We knew who James McCarthy was and Joe Hart was, but remember, those guys were signed, I think, as just stopgaps. We just lost to Hearts in the league. We've just been put through the Champions League qualifiers. We needed to get some players in. I think they looked at a list of guys that we'd looked at before, because Joe Hart was definitely linked to us a year ago.
Yes.
He turned out to be a good signing, but James McCarthy was literally a Dermot Desmond signing. Then you look at everyone else that Ange just signed. I think you had to be a real football hipster to have said, I knew who Rio Hatate was and stuff like that. So I get a feeling we're going to see another window like that where everyone that comes in, I don't think we've heard of them, but that's not a bad thing. And that's not even exclusive to Ange. You can go back years to when Lenny was in charge. Had anybody heard of Victor Wanyama when we signed him? Virgil van Dijk, Berham Kayal? So the quality is there, but the scouting needs to be on top for him. The due diligence has to be done on a lot of these players, and price tag, as Johnny said, does not necessarily equate to a good player. If we spend 1 million on a player and he turns out to be brilliant, then great. Brilliant. That's excellent for us. Saves us spending 10 million on a player. But they are out there. But our scouting network has to be on top of it. And I'll put the trust in the process that it will be this summer.
Yeah, no, listen, I can't agree more. I'm actually quite excited, and it's something quite refreshing to see new and exciting, vibrant talents coming in, rather than it just being the standard fare, much like we're seeing across the city, where it's looking at guys who, and they're plying their trade down in England, because that's the easy go-to. But listen, from matters on the pitch to matters off the pitch, I want to finish up in this one, because this came in, it's been a bone of contention, but we've seen it a wee bit in practice. Yeah. So it's the Celtic end, has it been up our street? You know, would it be a Champions League thing? What do you think of it? Obviously, we've seen it. We saw it at the women's game. It was actually, dare I say, it was quite a good turnout. But for me, where I'm at with it, I think it's slightly false. It's slightly manufactured. It was very much, you know, listen, the principle I think is fantastic. The atmosphere was brilliant. The visual looked amazing. But as I've said time and time again, I think it's a long-term thing. If you want to win hearts and minds, then it needs to be a sustained effort. It was very derived, I think, in the way that it was done. Handpicked, a big match on the telly, you know, and then it made a brilliant visual. It made a brilliant atmosphere. But it was kind of funny because for me, it seemed like an exercise in volume, because even though you want atmosphere, there wasn't much reaction to the actual stuff that was happening on the pitch. So, you know, I think if it's something that wants to get people behind, I could certainly get behind what I saw. It looked great. No doubt about it. Obviously, there's logistics. Phil, Marc, you fall into the affected by it. But I think if they want to make the best of that, it needs to have a sustained effort. See if we could see something like that, whether it's at the Excelsior, whether it's at Parkhead, and it was a regular thing when Celtic aren't playing, turning up in those numbers, supporting the B team, supporting the females team, bringing income into those sources so it goes hand in hand. Do it over a sustained period of time through the course season into next season. Make that a thing. It gives you a strong case. You just can't cherry pick a nice game on telly and do it. But it's happening again because there's another big game and it's going to be going down again in the club are facilitating. It's they obviously must have liked the coin that came in off the back of it, but also given another chance. As a complete outsider who's not affected in any way, shape or form, what do you think, John? What did you think of what you saw out of that atmosphere, the visual at the women's game? Is it something that you can get behind?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't see any of it as live. I heard about it obviously on the papers, but this is obviously to do with the Green Brigade wanting to extend the Celtic end of standard, right? Okay.
Yes.
I think I've made my views about this before. If I was Phil or Marc in the Celtic end, and somebody wanted to punt me out my seat so they could form this new standing end, I'd be saying, go and fuck yourself. You know, I've been, in Phil's case, he's had a ticket there since what?
2007.
2007 was that, yeah?
Yeah, 2007.
For your old man. I've been watching games here for the last, before you were even, you know, in nappies, mate, you know, and I'm just not moving. If they want to support, you know, so it's not about supporting the girl. From what the very limited knowledge I have of it, I would say it's not about supporting the Celtic women's team. It's not about supporting the Celtic B team. Because if it was, you'd take yourself down to a game that's not on the telly. You have 9,000 years supporting them. Is it Airdrie they play at the minute? Is it?
Yeah.
Get yourself down there and show some support. So for me, it's a complete fabrication. It's false and it's self
indulgence.
I don't know what the word is. Self-gratification. I can't think what the word is. Self-serving. Yeah, it's to suit your own dynamic, and it's got hee-haw today with supporting the girls' team, the boys' team. It's a B team. It's about getting your way and trying to get your way. And Celtic should be saying, no, it's not happening. You've got to look after the people that have been there through thick and thin. And we hate to use the expression, you know, because, you know, somebody said, I think somebody asked in the group before, what's a Celtic da? But you've got to look after the Celtic das because they've been there through all the shite. Never mind through the good times. And, you know, I was lucky. I've stood in the jungle during the good times and through some fucking shite times as well.
Yeah.
You know, when you are spending more of your time at a game hanging your head wondering what the fuck is going on. Never mind watching and cheering what was actually going on. So for me, it's just false.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't be giving it any airtime.
No, here's one
and
thing.
that doesn't even affect me, like, you know.
Yeah, no, it's always interesting to find out someone who's got a sort of outside view. You know, the likes of myself, I've given my opinions on it, and as I says, having seen it, I can see the merit in it. I've given on the original when it first came up, I've given my thoughts on it for a sort of logistics side. You know, we're always going to be balanced, we're always going to be honest. I know that you guys, Marc and Phil, have been quite vocal on it from an obvious standpoint as someone that's going to affect. So it's good to have these sort of round conversations on it. You know, following on, Brown Warrior saying here, and it's sort of something that you touched on and that I mentioned, where he's saying, bear in mind that, you know, these guys have been allowed access to the stadium. You know, sometimes they might feel hard done by, but there's also been a lot done by the club, you know, to try and work in partnership. And they've been given access to the ground, as he says, to self-promote their own agendas, which sometimes, not always, it's important that we mention that, sometimes have been detrimental at the club. So where do you sit on it? Any change? Firstly, can I just ask you, Marc, what did you think of it visually? Take off the glasses, it affects me, what you may well think of some quarters of the crowd that are there. How did it look visually? Is it something that you could get behind if it maybe wasn't for your thoughts on maybe some of the persons attached to the groups?
I think it looked as good as we all thought it would look. It looked good, you know what I mean? It looked great. I mean, I don't think anybody was in any doubt that it would add to the spectacle. Now, can I just firstly say that they're trying to normalise the phrase the Celtic end and take that as the normalised use of that stand. That stand is named after Jock Stein, the greatest ever Celtic manager. There's no disrespect that guy by making it being used normally, or the normal use, a normal term be the Celtic end. Let's just remember what that stand has been named after. And they want to take that away as well. That wouldn't be used as a Jock Stein stand anymore. That would be used in normal vocabulary as the Celtic end. I don't want that to happen either. Also, I don't know why they didn't want to take the jungle, because that would make more sense. But anyway, I think if start to finish, John's right, start to finish, it was just a sea of utter garbage. They couldn't tell you a women's football player's name. You had Fran Alonso getting undressed like Superman with 5 minutes to go so he could run to the Celtic end. He was flinging players out the way. He was elbowing players out the way so he could run behind the crowd, behind the goals, and celebrate with the fans who didn't even know his name. Utter bullshit. Nobody gives a fuck about women's football in the Green Brigade or in any other, the boys section. Interestingly, the majority of fans at the match were sitting in the north stand. So most folk wanted to sit away from them. That's the most interesting part. There was bare gaps. They were all congealed together, but that was two big, massive supporters groups sitting together. The amount of tickets they must have sold with folk wanting to sit in there was probably in the hundreds, let's be honest. Most tickets sold were in the corner and right round to the away section. So let's get that one thing right. There was more folk wanting to sit away from them than there was wanting to sit with them. That's a fact. Anybody with eyes can see that. It was self-serving. It was arrogant to them to expect everybody just to fall for their stupid statement, how we're going to be supporting the girls. Come on, you girls in green. Nobody in that section could tell you why the players' names apart from Jacinta, because she's a wee darling. The rest of them you couldn't tell. You know what I mean? You get the manager that, as I said, drumming about with a white J-coat and like he plays snooker or something and running behind the goals, trying to make yourself into
Crockett and Tubbs.
And do you know something? See, any Celtic manager, Martin Neal was famous for this. He used to always say, you stand back and you watch your players celebrate. You stand back and the player, he was elbowing folk out the way to get behind that goal and do the cue goal, or whatever you want to call it, just self-promoting himself, and the woman deserved that crowd. I agree with John. In fact, I've got a solution to this. I think Celtic should give the Green Brigade and the boys that section. But do you know what? Only for women's games and B team games. Tell them they can get that section every single second week, but only for Celtic B games and women's games, because if they want to promote the women's games like they pretended that they want to promote, fine. Do you know what? You can have your corner at the home matches, and you can have the Jock Stein lower, the women's matches, and then you know nobody will be upset. It's a winner. The games, and one more thing quickly. If the idea is to bring the atmosphere up a notch to help Celtic in Europe, first of all, there's no better atmosphere in world football than Celtic Park on a Champions League match, and we still get fucked. If you talk about a home match in the SPFL, Celtic probably lose about 10 matches every 10 years at home. So having a start, we don't need to improve our home form and domestically. Our home form literally couldn't get any better. You'd have to be very, very picky to improve your form. We win maybe 99 out of 110 games we play and probably draw the other 8 and lose a couple, right? 2 or 3. So you can't get any better than that. So, and if you're talking European forms, the atmosphere in the European games is amazing, and we still get fucked. So what's the point? What are they trying to achieve? I'll tell you what I think it is. First of all, they just want they're malcontents. They want to moan, right? About it myself, but they want to moan. And second of all,
no, you don't moan, Marc. Come
second of all,
on.
right, Phil will tell you this. Look at the shite seats. Down at the corner, the Jockstein stand gets every last minute goal. We enjoy all the late winners. We enjoy all the goals against Rangers, all the Champions League winners, all the cracking moments at Celtic Park. They sit in the shite seats down at the corner of the Lisbon Lions stand. They've got a bird's eye view and they're wanting the good seats. They want to be front and centre when that ball's in the back of the net and the place is going mental. And they're just sick of having the shit seats. And that's exactly what that's part of it. And they went up with reset. And they're not going to get it. It's a pipe dream. And do you know what? No matter how many posters they put out, how much kind of stupid these statements you get after them, it's never going to happen because do you know what? The majority are always silent. It's always the loud minority that seem to constantly go on about things. And do you know what? They've not got a fucking chance. And thank God for that. I hope they enjoy next season watching Fran Alonso at Clyde Bank or whatever it is they play, because they'll be watching Celtic at the Celtic game at Celtic Park. That's for sure.
Well, strong words, but I can see what you're saying with it. Well, we've reached the hour mark, and that would befall to yourself, Phil, to give us the final word on this matter. As a man that's going to be affected by it, are you expecting to rock up on Saturday and find your seat plastered with stickers that are going to get all over your nice new jeans because they're partly worn off? You know, how did you like it? Do you agree with what Marc's saying, with what I've suggested? Would it be good to generate revenue into the club, make it a thing for the B team, make it a thing for the home team, generate cash off that, better atmosphere at these games, improve them potentially because they've got a better backing, but ultimately, you know, lay down a larger sample size to show what could be, win hearts and minds.
Well, if it's stickers that are on my chair when I get there on Saturday, that'll be better than the usual seagull shite that's on my chair, because for some reason the Seagulls like to target 139 in the Jockstein stand. The amount of games I've came to this season, I walk out of that landing and it's just caked, and it's like, don't clean it up anyway. So stickers I would accept, to be fair, because I've had that a few times this season. In terms of like my opinion on it, I said at the time, if you ask me, just me on my own, what if I'd be happy to stand for 90 minutes? If I decided I'm in on this, I'll turn my seat into the standing section seat and I'll stand for 90 minutes. I would have been like, okay. As I said, at the time I was thinking, well, I don't go to the games, I'll go with my dad, and for medical reasons, it's a problem for him. But I've also seen another problem that would be for me if I was to do that. I noticed that those flags that they've got are about the right height for where I sit. So I would just be basically spending all game having to go like this, side by side, because the flags just keep going and going and going. So I probably wouldn't even get to see the game most of the time anyway, if I did decide to do it. So if, and a big if, it does happen, then I might just need to bite the bullet and just move to the other section. But I'm in the camp of, there's too many loopholes at the moment, too many stuff, to hurdles and that to get to that stage. If it was going to happen, it's a good while down the line before we're even getting to there. But yeah, I did notice the flags going back and forward, and was looking at the sort of height of them and going, that's no ideal for me. That doesn't work for me, but I'll just be looking side to side all games. So I wouldn't see a thing anyway. So yeah, that's my opinion on it at the moment. You did add a good atmosphere, no doubt about it. And I agree with the points as well. There probably was a bit of an ulterior motive. You know, if we could see it every week on games only televised, home and away, then I think they've got a stronger case. But yeah, at the moment, we're still a long way off, I think, from it.
Good. Well, guys, thank you for joining me. Just real quick, game of the weekend. Quick round the houses. Score predictions. Mark?
2-1, Celtic.
John? Where are you at? 3-1. That's what I like. Positive, bouncing back like Alan Partridge.
We're definitely going to lose a goal, but yeah, we're going to score 3-1.
Phil? Any
5-0 to the boys. We bounce back big time.
Yes! That's that. Let's all get on whatever you've been drinking, but listen, a home game back in full house. Aye, why not? I'm going to sit somewhere in the middle. I'm going to say 3-0. Bernabei, Kobayashi, no scoring.
Not a chance.
You just fucking blew it there, Stevo. You blew it there.
Thank you very much for joining us. Tomorrow, Phil's back. It's Bustalgia. What you got in store for us, mate?
Oh, mate, well, I've actually got a few shows all lined up at the moment. I don't know exactly what show will be on tomorrow. Or I will be on Bustalgia. Yeah, because it just depends on availability. There's certain shows that I've got lined up and I need specific people on it. So I'm going to show you what's coming up over the next 4 weeks, right? And, well, there's one that's concrete. There's one that's definitely happening on a specific night. But over the next 4 weeks, this is what I have got planned. So I've got one for Dream debutants, guys who obviously came in and got off to a good start. There's like Chris Coleman, George Cadet. And, of course, it isn't always about scoring goals on your debut. David Marshall, obviously. His first team debut, very memorable. Barry Robson, Scott Sinclair. So that type of thing. I've obviously got one. There's a season that I've been kind of dancing around because I've not got to it yet. So I've got the 2013-14 season lined up at some point in the next few weeks. So that'll happen. And then I've got this one. A special.
Oh, yes.
Paul McStay and John Collins, because Russell said last week we missed the boat by not doing a feature on John Collins, and I went,
tempo,
right,
the passing,
tempo, yes. And I was like, you're right, because when I thought about Collins, I thought, well, him and McStay kind of go hand in hand for me in that, and I want to home in specifically on the grim early 90s because these two guys were light years better than anyone else in that Celtic team. So I want to do a player-specific special on those two. Liam Brady will not be featured that much, which is the only picture I could find of the two of them side by side. Liam Brady squeaked in there. And on the eve of Scottish Cup final night, we will have a Scottish Cups special, Celtic and the Scottish Cup. There's one, Johnny, that you remember very well, right there in the middle. There's a centenary Scottish Cup. You can see it right there.
Yeah,
so
that was one of the best days of my life, that was.
Yeah, so hey, Johnny, if you're available that night, if you want to come on and talk about anything with that one, then by all means, we'd love to hear it. But that'll be on the eve of the Scottish Cup final. We'll do a Celtic and the Scottish Cups.
I'm flying back from Dallas that night.
Dallas, God. But that is basically the next 4 weeks of Bustalgia. I've got a few lined up.
As long as nobody's shot, John Logue will be all right, mate.
Yeah. But yeah, just depending on availability, who's on tomorrow night. But yeah, the McStay and Collins one, I say Russell suggested it, so I think it would be right that he definitely gets onto that one. But yeah, I'll speak to him afterwards and find out what's going on. But yeah, I will be on tomorrow with one of those shows. Well, apart from the Scottish Cup one, obviously needs to wait. But yeah, that's the next 4 weeks. There you go.
Lovely stuff. I'll look forward and hopefully I'll try and shoehorn my way into one of them.
Well, there you go, exclusive. Collins tomorrow. Russell has confirmed. He's in. He's all in.
The tempo, the movement, get involved. Need to get a flat top, belt and a haircut as well. Anyway, listen, guys, everybody out there, thanks again for taking the time to join us. As I say, it's a wee bit earlier. Next week, we'll be back to our usual 9 o'clock slot. So once again, thanks for joining us and make sure, tune in to all our socials, give us a wee follow, and we'll see you again shortly. I'll be back on tomorrow for another exciting episode. Thanks again. Time for these grumpy old men to get themselves into their pit. Good night, everybody. Right. See you later.
See you later, folks.
See you guys.